Welcome to The Insider, the official podcast for the City of Murfreesboro. I'm Mike Browning. Our guests are Carl Montgomery. He's the chair for the Committee on Contributions of the Murfreesboro Community Investment Trust, and Karen Lampert, who is the grant manager for the city. They are joining us from our studio here at City Hall in the council chambers for this podcast, and we thank you both for joining us on The Insider.
Thank you for having us.
The topic we're talking about is new. It's a new way of distributing funds to nonprofits, and I think it requires some explanation. So Karen, if you could share with us what the larger committee, which is the Community Investment Trust, is, and then how the committee that you're working with kind of works with that.
Yeah, it's definitely a new process for the city for sure. In the days past, it was a pot of money that the city managed and was, kind of dealt through the city council making decisions. But recently, the city sold its electric utility. And so similar to the Christy Houston Foundation, when they sold the hospital, they used the proceeds to set up a foundation. So the city wanted to go that route as well. So when they were in discussion for the sale of the utility company, they knew that it was going to be a large influx of money, and they wanted to make sure that that there was a way to use that responsibly and really look at the long-term benefits that those proceeds could do for the community. And so when they finalized the sale in 2019, they used the initial down payment to establish the trust, and a portion of the proceeds have been designated to go to help support city infrastructure projects such as roads and parks. But then they wanted to set aside some that could go out into the community through a grant process. So,
for the benefit of those who don't understand, what's the difference between the trust or the board of trustees and the committee on contributions?
Yeah, so when they established the trust, there's a board of trustees that oversees the management. So it's similar to a nonprofit board. So they're there to make sure that operationally everything is done according to the laws and how it's established. And they're also the financial overseers of the money. So they want to make sure that those proceeds are invested wisely, they're earning a good investment return. So that overall board is responsible for the operations portion. And then from that, they wanted to set up a committee to do the grant-making process. So the Committee on Contributions sits up underneath the Board of Trustees. They answer to the Board of Trustees.
And Carl, that's where you come in. How did you even get involved in this process?
I had heard that the city was taking applications to be on this committee. And so I filled out the information and submitted it into the city, and fortunately enough, I was selected to serve on this committee as well as 7 others. They chose 7 people to serve on the committee on contributions.
And then the committee itself, you're the chair, so can you expand on the process that you've been involved in? It's been almost a year now, I guess.
Yes. Well, one of the first things that we were charged with is to interview and evaluate grant management software companies. And so we did that, and then from that we chose a company, Fondant, and from that we formulated questions that the applicants would have, inside the software, so the applicants could answer those questions. And from those questions, then the software will generate a report scoring each applicant. And so when we score them, and then we will make decisions on that, and we will make recommendations to the trustees as to who should get the grant and how much those grants should be.
So the scoring process hasn't really started yet, Karen, because there's a deadline for application, which is, I think, October 31st. Is there more that you want to share about how that process will work after I guess, the deadline and they've submitted all of the applications?
Yeah, so we set a month-long open application process to give nonprofits enough time to fill out the application. I think the committee has done a really good job in establishing a application that's really very simple but to the point, and make it easy for the nonprofits to participate in the process, because that's what we wanted to do, was to really ensure that it wasn't a complicated endeavor. And so once that closes on the 31st, then it goes into the review process that Carl was talking about. So we'll help support that process and get all the information together for the committee to review it. Once they've made their decisions, then it goes to the trustee to be approved, and then it has to go to City Council for final approval. So we're thinking probably March is when it will be sent to City Council for their approval. So
And when you say make their decisions, are you talking about the allocation of the funding or how much each applicant receives?
yeah, both. So it would be identifying the nonprofit as well as the amount that they'll be receiving.
And I think when the initial announcement came out, you already know kind of not exactly how much, but you know generally there's going to be this much funding based on how the trust was established. And then you want to try to distribute that to more people if you can. So
Right.
there's kind of a figure in there that you're looking at.
Yeah, so the way the trust was established, the end of the year, December 31st, we'll receive a financial statement from the investment to determine what the interest has been. So that will be the starting point for determining how much will be distributed out. So they take most foundation policies are to distribute 5% of that, and so ours is looking at that minus any administrative cost, and so we'll break that down and have that. So because this is the first year, and when the sale was made, it was done on an installment plan, so the full investment of the sale hasn't happened yet. That's going to happen over a 15-year period. So we anticipate that this first year, the funding will be relatively the same amount of funding that has been given out through the previous strategic partnership allocations.
And Carl, why is it important to you that you serve on this committee?
Well, I was born and raised here, 57 years, and I love Murfreesboro. Our family has a long history of giving back to our community, and I want my children and grandchildren to live by that example.
And when you look at the process now, you haven't looked at the applications yet, but you kind of have an idea of knowing what you know about Murfreesboro, having lived here as long as you have, the kind of things that maybe need to be supported. What are you looking forward to in terms of how you can then use this money to support the community?
The ultimate goal would be to change the lives of the applicants, of the people that the applicants serve. That would be the ultimate goal, and to have a profound impact on the city of Murfreesboro and its citizens through this wonderful, wonderful gift. That's the goals of that I think we should have.
And Karen, you've been involved in the process before it changed to where it was utilizing the money that came from the proceeds of the electric department, but the city then used some of its operating funds for that. What are some of the applications, or what are some of the uses that we think this money is going to go to in general?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a broad range of community projects. There's been art-based projects in the past. There's been social service projects, such as, domestic violence, the Children Advocacy Center, Journey Home. I think we'll see a gamut of things that will help, with youth and children, education, homeless people, veterans, animals. So I think we have such a nice variety of nonprofits in the community who do a lot of good work in a lot of different fields. And so I think we're going to have a good broad base of projects to look at for funding.
And these projects will be evaluated on kind of a system or a point basis in which you allocate the funds to the people that you think will best serve the community. Carl, who will be making those decisions? Who else is with you on this committee?
Our committee is made up of, there's Lyle Lynch, Collier Smith, Ronnie Martin, Dr. John Hinkle Jr., Lynn, and Wade Hayes.
Okay, so all of these are people who have served in the community. I noticed Ronnie Martin, he was a former council member who works with a bank here in town. And others are all like civic-oriented folks.
I think we have a wonderful group of individuals that are served. They have a serving heart, I can tell.
And as you understand it, what will your process be like individually? Because you'll do this individually, but then as a group, how do you understand how that process will work?
Well, individually, we have access to the software, and so we will individually look at those applicants, score them. We will meet back all together, and this is where we will. My goal as chairman is to hopefully run efficient, productive meetings where we can come together and make the decision on who should get this money and how much they should get, and that's my goal.
And in terms of your deadline, I guess, what do you hope to accomplish by a certain, because you've got a deadline in order to give these recommendations to the Board of Trustees. How will that work?
That deadline is February 15th of 2024. The application process ends the end of October. The staff has to do a little bit of work there and then turn the system on for us to start grading them. And then that will run for the most part of November, December, and probably maybe even into January. We just don't know how many applicants we're going to have. We don't know how many we're going to have. This first year is a lot of learning.
Yeah. So that's the committee's role. So on the other side, the city is somewhat involved as an advisory role to the committee. So what will be the process that you and others that you work with once the application process closes and then working with the committee?
Yeah, so we're really here to provide administrative support to the committee and, do kind of the behind the scenes help. And so what we'll do is we'll help vet all the applications to make sure they've completed all the questions and have all the documentation, and they are a 501c3. So we'll do that vetting process so that we can send to them applications that are ready to be reviewed and meet all the criteria. So we want to make sure that their time is well spent, and so we'll weed out anything that is not up to par or doesn't meet the guidelines or standards prior to them reviewing it.
So that's interesting. You said that 501c3, they have to be a nonprofit for one.
Yes.
And then the other issue that's kind of come up is this is not really for capital projects. Can you explain that?
Right. The funding allotment is really not such that it's enough that would really provide impact for capital projects. And that's a whole kind of different level of giving to the community. And so I think the purpose of the trust and the role that the committee plays is really to see about community impact to the constituents and the residents of the city. That is also one of the requirements for the grant application, is that the project does benefit the city within the city limits.
And Carl mentioned the grant-making software. Let's talk about that just briefly. So How was that selected, and what are the advantages of the particular software? You don't have to name what it is, but what is it about it that makes this process, I guess, streamlined and beneficial?
Yeah, it's been a great process to go through, and we've been very fortunate. As the grant writer for the city, I've had the experience of using a lot of different online systems to submit grant applications. So that's kind of where my experience and expertise came in to help, provide some background information about what things were from a grant writer perspective, what things really made for an easy or a good application process, and been able to share different platforms that I've experienced and used, and talk about what was good, what was bad. And we also got feedback from other foundations that use platforms as well to identify what they thought were good ones. So we did try to do a lot of research to really look at what was a good fit for us, and so we were able to narrow it down to a couple, and that's when the committee did their interview process. And so we did land on Foundant, which is pretty widely used in the foundation world, and they've been really good to work with, and it's been a really easy software to use, and it really is going to save a lot of time entries, because we're not printing a lot of stuff. We can do it all online and electronically, and that seems to be the way of the world now.
Yeah, it's where we're in now. Right.
Especially since COVID. I've seen a lot of the, in years past it was, submit 10 copies of a paper application and, have it in this order. And I think that was kind of the way it was done in the past here with the strategic partnerships.
Which makes it cumbersome, right?
Yeah, it definitely makes it cumbersome. So this way it's all electronically, and just really makes for an easier process.
And Carl, you, as the committee, I guess you had to have some training on this new software. What do you think about it? Are you comfortable, I guess, with it? And will you be able to do, I guess, the things you want to do with it?
Yes, our last session we trained on it, and it's very user friendly. We picked right up on, our group picked right up on it, and was able to do some example applicants and score them, and it was very user friendly, I thought.
Do we have some response from the applicants at this point? Any questions, or are they expressing that this is a great process? What have you heard so far?
I think by the fact that we haven't received a lot of problem requests or problem inquiries attest to that. It's going smoothly. We haven't had any feedback at this point as to, that they enjoyed it or it was good. So we definitely look forward to receiving that feedback, and, always looking at ways that we can do this process better. And I think that's one of the things, because it is a new process. After we go through it all, I'm sure the committee will be evaluating that and, looking at seeing how they want to improve or make changes for the next year.
When will the applicants then hear back from you after they've applied? How many days will there be, and when should they expect to hear back?
Yeah, so that's the other beauty of this software system, is it does allow for the generation of emails and notifications and things like that. So we will work with the committee to establish some email communications, and once the city council makes the final approval, then that's when the award notices will go out, and then the ones that didn't receive it will also be notified. So we're looking at March, probably towards the end of March.
And this will be for the fiscal year that begins in July. That's the other thing, that this process is designed to gear toward that new budget.
Yes, yeah. So it is a little lengthy process for now, but we may be able to tighten that up a little bit once we kind of go through it and everybody kind of gets some experience under their belt. We may be able to shorten that time frame a little bit.
But it's designed so that each year, the funding for that new fiscal year is when this money will be distributed, right?
Right, yes.
So it's
yes.
part of the city's budget.
Right, yeah, because there's some background stuff that has to happen with the transfer of the funds and being able to utilize those back out.
As we wrap it up, Carl and Karen, anything that you wanted to mention about the process or anything to tie this up? I want to leave you that opportunity. So.
I'm just honored to be on the committee. I think it's a wonderful thing, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it grows over the years. This first year is there's just a lot of learning that we're going to do, but I think as we get more seasoned, it'll be a lot smoother. And I'm encouraged that you're not receiving a lot of calls on how to make the application. That's good. That says we set it up pretty simple, and that was our goal.
Yeah.
Karen?
Yeah, no, I think it's, I'm excited to be a part of this process and be able to support the work that the committee's doing. And, I think it's a great opportunity for the city, and I think it will really create some lasting impact in the long run. So I think that's really a good thing.
Well, I want to thank you both for being our guests on The Insider.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We've been talking with Carl Montgomery, Chair for the Committee on Contributions of the Murfreesboro Community Investment Trust, and Karen Lampert, Grant Manager for the City of Murfreesboro. This podcast is originated from City Hall. Thanks for listening to The Insider via Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Amazon Music Audible, as well as Google Podcast. You can also watch The Insider right here on YouTube. Our producer is Michael Nevels. For more information on the City of Murfreesboro, you can visit murfreesborotn.gov. The Insider is the official podcast for the City of Murfreesboro. I'm Mike Browning, and thanks a lot for joining us.